Hello everyone, we're going to finish this book, The Power of Now, A Guide to Spiritual Alignment, Chapter 10. Finish this up, and then we're going to move on to something else. This is the meaning of surrender, the final chapter. And then I'll let you know what we're going to move on to next. We're planning on deciding either we're doing a certified nurse assistant, moving on to nursing, or counseling. We're trying to decide. But whichever way is going to lead us into something greater, because both of them are healing jobs. Something that the universe is telling us to do next, because we're healers.
We're becoming healers, so this is something that we've been thinking about maybe 5 years ago.
Oh, but I already did. But I was already a CNA before.
Yes, so I'm just like a person or a guidance that pushing him, something that we both like to do. We just push each other to success in this career that we want to do. So our new opportunities. So one door closes, the other door opens.
So now we're going to finish this chapter. Starts off with surrender and personal relationships.
All right, I'll go ahead and start. All right, so surrender in personal relationships. What about people who wants to use me, manipulate, or controls me? I am to surrender to them. They are cut out from being. Huh?
Sounds like we're doing it now.
Yes. So the unconscious, oh my gosh, I can't read at nighttime. Oh my gosh. Oh. Sorry about that. They are cut off from being, so they unconsciously attempted to get energies of power from you. It is true that only an unconscious person will try to use or manipulate others, but it is equally true that only an unconscious person can be used and manipulated. If you resist or fight unconscious behavior in others, you become unconscious yourself. But surrender doesn't mean that you allow yourself to be used by unconscious people. Not at all. It is perfectly possible to say no firmly and clearly to the persons, or to walk away from the situation and be in a state of complete inner non-resistance at the same time. When you say no to a person or a situation, let it come not from reactions but from insight, from a clear realization of what it is right or not right for you at the moment. Let it be the non-reactions no, a high quality no, a no that is free of negativities, and so creates no further suffering. I am in a situation at work that is unpleasant. I have tried to surrender to it, but I find it impossible, and a lot of resistance keeps coming up. If you cannot surrender, take the actions immediately. Speak up or do something to bring about a change in the situation, or remove yourself from it. Take responsibility from your life. Do not pollute your beautiful, radiant inner being of the earth with negativity. Do not give unhappiness in any forms whatsoever a dwelling places inside you. If you cannot take actions, for example, if you are in prison, then you have two choices left: resistance or surrender, a bondage or inner freedoms for internal conditions, suffering or inner pieces. As non-resistance, also they practiced in the external products of our lives, such as non-resistance to violence, or is it something that just concerns our inner lives? You only need to be concerned with the inner aspects. That is primary, of course. That will also transform. Yes. Yes. Wait.
That?
Yes.
I'm doing it right? Wow.
Your relationship will be changed profoundly by surrender. If you can never accept what is, by implications, will not be able to accept anybody the way they are. You will be judged, criticized, labeled, rejected, or attempted to change people. Furthermore, if you continuously make the now into a means to an end of the futures, you will also make every person you encounter or related with into a means to an end. The relationships, the human beings is the secondary importance to you, or of no importance at all. what are all what what you can get out of the relationships is primary, be it materials gains, a sense of powers, physical pleasures, or some forms of ego's gratification. Let me illustrate how surrenders can make work in a relationship. When you become involved in an argument or some conflict situations, perhaps with your partners or someone close to you, starts by observing how defensive you become as you as your own position is attacked, or feel the forces of your own aggressions as you attack the other person's positions.
Wow, really fast.
Yes.
Wow.
Observe the attachments to your views and opinions. Feel the mental, emotional energies behind your needs to be right and make the other person's wrong. What's the energies of their egoic mind? You make it conscious by yep,
Damn.
by acknowledging it, by feeling it as fully as possible. Then one day in the middle of the argument, you will suddenly realize that you have a choice, and you may decide to drop your own reactions just to see what happens. You surrender. I don't mean to dropping your reactions just verbally by saying, okay, you are right. With a look of your face that says, I am above all the childish unconsciousness. That's just displacing a resistance in others' level. With the egoic mind still in charge, claiming superiorities, I am seeking of letting go of the entire mental, emotional energies field. As I do with that was fighting for power. The ego is cunning, so have to be very alert, very present, and totally honest to yourself to see whether you have truly relinquished your identifications with the mental positions.
Hold on. Okay. Sorry about that. We got disturbed.
Alright, so continue where I'm at. I have to start over again. So, observe the attachments to your views of opinions. Feel the mental, emotional energies behind your needs to be the right to make the other person's wrong. That's the energies of the egoic mind. Oh. You make it conscious by acknowledging it, by feeling it fully possible. Then one day, in the middle of an argument, you will suddenly realize that you have a choice. And you may decide to drop your own reactions just to see what happens. You surrender. I don't mean dropping the reactions by verbally by saying, okay, you're right. With a look in your face and say that says, I am above all our childish unconsciousness. That's just displacing the resistance of another's level. With the egoic mind still in charge, claiming superiorities. I am speaking of letting go of the entire mental emotional energies field inside you with the fighting for power. The ego is cunning, so you have to be very alert, very present, and totally honest with yourself to see whatever you have truly relinquished your identifications with the mental positions and so freed yourselves from your mind. If you suddenly feel very light, clear, and deeply at peace, that is an unmistaken sign to you have truly surrendered. Then observe what happened to the other person's mental positions as you no longer energize it through resistance. When identifications with mental positions is out of the way, truly communications begins. What about non-resistance in the face of violence, aggressions, and the like? Non-resistance doesn't necessarily means doing nothing. All it means is that any doing becomes non-reactions. Remember the deep wisdoms underlying the practice of Eastern uh, martial art. Don't resist the opponent's force. Yield to overcome. Having said that, doing nothing when you are in the state of intense presence is very powerful as transformer and healer of situations of people. In Taoism, there is a term called Wu Wei, which is usually translated as actionless activity or setting quietly down nothing, doing nothing. In ancient China, this is regarded as one of the highest achievements or virtues. It is ridiculously different from the inactivities or in the ordinary states of consciousness, or rather unconsciousness, which stems from fear, um, inertia, or indecision. The real doing nothings implies inner non-resistance and intense of alterness. On the other hand, if actions is required, you will no longer react from your conditioned mind, but you will respond to the situations of your conscious presence. In the state, your mind is free for concepts, including the concepts of non-violence. So if you predict what you will you do, the ego believes that in your resistance lies your strength, whereas the truth resistance cuts off from being. The only place is true power. Resistance is weakness, and fear masquerading as strength. What is ego sees as weakness is your being in its purities, innocence, and power. What it sees as strength is weakness. So the ego exists in a continuously resistance mode and play counterfeit roles to cover up your weaknesses, which is true. Truth is your power until there is surrenders. Unconscious role playing constitute as large part of the human's interactions. In the surrenders, you no longer need ego's defense and false mask. You become very simple, very real. That's dangerous. So says the ego. You'll get hurt. You'll become vulnerable. What the ego doesn't know, of course, is that only through the letting go of the resistance through becoming vulnerable can you discover your truth and essentials of vulnerability.
Transforming illness into enlightenment. If someone is seriously ill and completely accepts their condition and surrenders to the illness, would they have not given up their will to get back to health? Determination to fight the illness would not be there anymore, would it? Surrender and inner acceptance without any reservations. We are talking about their life. The instant, not the conditions or circumstances of your life, not what I call your life situation. We have spoken about this already. With regard to the illness, that means the illness is part of your life situation. As such, it has past and future form of interrupted continuum, unless the redeeming power of the now is activated through your consciousness presence, as you know, underneath the various conditions to make up their life situation, which exist in the time. There is such deeper, more essential. Your life is very being into timeless now. As there are no problems in the now, there is no illnesses. The belief in the label someone attaches to your condition keeps the condition in place. empowers it, and makes seamlessly solid reality out temporary imbalance. It gives it not only the reality and solidity, but also a continuing time that there it did not did before. By focusing on this instant and refraining from labeling it mentally ill, illness is reduced from one several of these factors: physical pain, weaknesses, discomfort, or disability. That is what you surrender to now. You do not surrender to the idea of illness, allowing the sufferer force into the present moment, into a state of instant consciousness presence. Use it for enlightenment. Surrender does not transform what is, at least not directly. Surrender transforms you. Whether you transform, your whole world is transformed because of the world of is only a reflection. We did not spoke about this earlier. If you looked into the mirror and did not look for what you saw, you would like to be a mad at attack the image into the mirror. That is precisely what you did when you were of a statement of non-acceptance, and of course, if you attack the image, if it attacks you back. If you accept the image, no matter what is, if you become friendly toward it, it cannot not become friendly toward you. This is how you change the world. Illness is not a problem. You are the problem. As long as you have an egoic mind in control, when you are ill or disabled, you do not feel that you have failed in some way. Do not feel guilty. Do not blame life for treating you unfairly. But do not blame yourself either. All that is resistance. If you have a major illness, use it for enlightenment. Anything bad that happens in your life, use it for enlightenment. Withdraw time from the illness. Do not give it from past to future. Let it force you for more intense present moment awareness, and see what happens. Become an alchemist, a magician. Transmute base metal into gold, suffering into consciousness, disaster into enlightenment. Are you seriously ill, or are you feeling angry now? What you've said? Then what is a clear sign of illness that become part of your sense of self, that you are protecting into your identity as well as you're protecting into the illness? The condition is that a labeled illness has nothing to do with what you truly are. When disaster strikes, as far as you still conscious majority of the population is concerned, only a critical limited situation has the potential to crack the hard shell of ego and force them into surrender, and so that into awakened state. A limited situation arises when you have some disaster, drastic upheaval, deep loss, or suffering from your whole world is shattered and does not make sense anymore. If you have encounter with death, be physical or psychological, the egoic mind, the creator of this world, collapses. One of the ashes of the old world, a new world then comes into the being. There's no guarantee, of course, even with limit situations to do it, but the potential is always there. Some people resistance to what intensifies in the situation, it becomes a dissonant of hell. In others, they may not only be a partial surrender. Partial surrender. Some resistant people intensify into a situation becomes a decent in hell, and others have made partial surrender, but even though they become a certain depth and serenity that were not there before. Parts of the ego shell that breaks off and allows small amounts of radiance and peace beyond the mind to shine through. Limited situations have produced many miracles. There have been many murders and death now waiting for execution, who have the last few hours of their lives experienced an egoless state of deep joy and peace that come with it. The inner resistance of this situation they found themselves into became so intense to produce unbearable suffering, and there are nowhere to run, nothing to do to escape, not even the mind projected future. So they forced it into complete acceptance of the unacceptable. They were forced into surrender. In any way, they were able to enter the state of grace, which would come to redemption. Complete release from the past. Of course, it is not really the limit situation. It makes room for the miracle of grace and redemption, but the act of surrender.
So whenever any kinds of disaster strikes, or something goes seriously wrong, illnesses, disabilities, loss of homes or furnitures of socially defined entities, breakups of a close relationship, death or suffering of a loved one, or your own independence death, impending deaths. Know that there is another side to it. That you are just one of the steps away from something incredible, a complete what chemicals transmutations of all base metals and pains and sufferings into gold. That one step is called surrender. I do not mean to say that you will become happy in such a situation. You will not. But fear and pain will become transmuted into an inner piece of a serenity that comes from a very deep place, from the unmanifested itself. It is the peace of God which passes all understanding. Compared to that, happiness is quite a shallow thing. With this radiant peace comes realizations, not on the not on the level of mind with nothing within the depths of your being. That are you uh, indestructibles and immortal. This is not a belief. It is absolute certainly that needs to external evidence or proof from some secondary sources, transforming suffering into peace. I read about a Stoics philosophers in ancient Greece who, when he was told that his sons had died in an accident, replied, I know he was not immortal. He, that is surrender. It is. I don't want it. There are some situations in which surrender means unnatural and inhuman. Being cut off from my feelings is not surrender, but we don't know what his inner state was when he said those words. In certain extreme situation, it may still be impossible for you to accept the no, but you always get a second chance at surrender. Your first chance to surrender each moment is to the reality of that moment, that knowing that what is cannot be undone because it is already is. You said yes to what is or accept what isn't. Then you do what you have to do, whatever the situation requires. It is if you abide in this state of acceptance, you create no more negativity, no more suffering, no more unhappiness. You then live in a state of non-resistance, a state of grace and lightness, free of struggles. Whenever you are unable to do that, whenever you miss that chance, either because you are not generating enough consciousness presence to prevent some habituals or unconsciousness resistance patterns from resistance, or because the conditions is so extreme as to be absolutely unacceptable to you, then you are creating some forms of pain, some forms of suffering. It may look at as if its situations is creating the suffering, but unlimited. This is not so. Your resistance is. Now here is your second chance at surrender. If you cannot accept what it is outside, then accept what is inside. If you cannot accept external conditions, accept the internal conditions. This means do not resist the pain. Allow it to be there. Surrender to the grief, despair, fear, loneliness, or whatever forms of the suffering takes. Witness it without labeling it mentally. Embrace it. Then see how the miracles of surrender transmute its deep sufferings into deep peace. This is your crucifixions. Then it becomes your resurrections and ascensions. Do I see how can surrender to suffering? As you suffer, as you yourself pointed out, suffering is a non-surrender. How could you surrender to non-surrender?
Twin flames twice pulled out. Second
Well,
time.
that's right. You're there.
That's the second time I pulled out the same thing with the same deck.
Oh,
Twin flames twice with this
Wow.
deck.
Forget about these surrenders for a moment. When your pain is deep, all talk of surrender will probably seem futile, futile or meaningless anyway. When your pain is deep, you will likely have a strong urge to escape from it rather than surrender to it. You don't want to feel what you feel. You could be more normal. Be there is no escapes, no way out. There is merely persuadal escape. Work, drink, drugs, angers, projections, suppressions, and so on. Mm, But but they don't free you from the pain. Suffering does not diminish in intensities
Oh my gosh.
when you make it unconsciousness.
Cycle's been completed.
When you deny emotional pain, everything you do or think as well as your relationship becomes contaminated with it. You broadcast it. So to speak, ask the energy you emanate on, and other will pick it up subliminally. If they are unconscious, they may even feel compelled to attack or hurt you in some ways, or you may hurt them in an unconscious project or projections of your pain. You attack and manifest whatever corresponds to your inner state. When there is no way out, there is still always a way through. So don't turn away from the pain. Face it. Feel it fully. Feel it. Don't think about it. Express the necessary. Express it if necessary. But don't create a script in your mind around it. Give all your attentions to the feelings, not to all the persons, events, or situations that seems to have caused it. Don't let the minds use the pain to create a victim's identity. What?
Look what I pulled out. These are the energies surrounding me. Air, Taurus, Capricorn, and Pisces.
For yourselves out of it. Feeling sorry for yourself and telling others your stories will keep you stuck in suffering. Since it is impossible to get away from the feelings, the only possibility of chance is to move into it. Otherwise, nothing will shift. So give your complete attention to what you feel and refrain from mentally labeling it. As you go into the feeling, be intensely alert. At first, it may seem like a dark and terrifying place. And when you urge to turn away from it, observe it, but don't act on it. Keep putting your attentions on the pain. Keep feeling the grief, the fear, and dread, the loneliness, whatever it is. Stay alert. Stay present. Presence is your presence with your whole being, with every cell of your body. As you do so, you are bringing a light into this darkness. This is the flame of your consciousness. At this stage, you don't need to be concerned about the surrounding anymore. If you happened already, it has happened already. How? Full attention of the full acceptance is surrender. By giving full attention, you use the powers of the now, which is the power of your presence. No hidden pockets of resistance can survive in it. Presence removes time. Without time, no sufferings, no negativities can survive. The acceptance is suffering from the journey into death. Facing deep pain allowed to do it, to be taking your intentions into it. It is to enter death consciously. When you have died this death, you realize that there is no death. And there is nothing to fear. Only the ego dies. Imagine a ray of sunlight and has forgotten it is to inspirable part of the sun and to dilute deludes itself into believing it has to fight for survivals and create and cling to the identities others than the sun. Would the depth of this delusions not be incredibilities liberating? Do you want easy death? Would you rather die without pain, without agony? Then die to the past of every moment, and let the light of your presence shine away from the heavy. Time bounds your self view through as you.
Gosh. Should find these order.
The way of cross. There are many accounts of people who says they have found God through their deep suffering.
Hello everyone, we're back. I'm going to finish up with this last 3 pages of this chapter. Okay, the way of the cross. There are many accounts for people that have found God through their deeper suffering, and the Christian expression, the way of the cross, I suppose points us to the same thing. We are concerned that nothing else here. Strictly speaking, that they did not find God through their suffering, because suffering implies resistance. They found God through surrender, through total acceptance of what is, into which they were forced into intense suffering. They must have realized at some level of their inner pain was self-created. How do you equate surrender with finding God? Since resistance is inseparable from the mind, relinquishment of the resistance surrender is the end of the mind as your master. The impostor pretending to be you, the false God. All judgment and all negativity dissolve. The realm of being, which is obstructed by the mind, then opens up suddenly. A great stillness arises within you. An unfathomable sense of peace. And within the peace there is a great joy, and within the joy there is love. And the innermost core, the sacred immeasurable, which cannot be named. I do not call it finding God, because there you could find which has never been lost. The very life that you are. The word God is limiting not only because of thousands of years misperception and misuse, but also because it implies the entity other than you. What? There is no subject-object relationship here, no duality, no you and no God. God realization is the most natural thing there is. The amazing and incomprehensible fact that you can become unconscious of God, that you are not conscious of God. The way of cross mentioned at the old way of enlightenment, and until recently it was only the way. But don't dismiss it for underestimate its efficiency. It still works. The way of the cross is a complete reversal. It means that you're the worst thing in your life. The cross that turns into the best thing that ever happened to you by forcing you into surrender, into death, forcing you into becoming as nothing, to become as God, because God is is nothing. At this time, as far as the unconscious majority of humans is concerned, the way of the cross is still a live way. They have the only way to awaken through further suffering. Enlightenment is collective phenomena which were predictably preceded by the vast upheavals. This process reflects the workings of a certain universal laws that govern the growth of consciousness, and thus the foreseen by the sin of others. It is described among the other places in the book of Revelation or Apocalypse through the cloaked, is obscure, is sometimes impenetrable symbology. This suffering is inflicted not by God but by humans on themselves, by each other, as well as certain defense measures that the earth, which is a living, intelligent organism, is going to protect himself from the onslaught of humans' madness.
Well, yeah. However, there is a growing number of humans alive today whose consciousness is sufficiently evolved not to need any more suffering before the realizations of enlightenment. You may be one of them. Enlightenment through suffering, the way of cross, means to be forced into kingdoms of heavens, kicking and screaming. You finally surrender because you can't stand the pain anymore, but the pain could go on for excuse me, a long time until this happens. Enlightenment consciously chosen means to relinquish your attachments to past and further and to make now the main focuses of your life. It means choosing to dwell the states of the present rather than in time. It means saying yes to what it is. You don't need to pain. You don't need pain anymore. How much more time do you think you will need before you are able to say, "I will create no more pain, no more suffering"? How much pain do you need before you can make that choice? If you think that you need more time, you will go. You will get more time and more pain. Time and pain are inseparable. The two power of the power to choose. What about all people who, it seems, actually want to suffer? I have a friend whose partner is physically abusive towards her, and her previous relationship was of a similar kind. What does she choose? Why does she choose such man? And why is she refusing to get out of this situation now? Why do so many people actually choose pain? I know that the word choose is favorite New Age term, but it is isn't entirely accurate to this context. It is misleading to say that somebody's choose to dysfunctional relationship or in other negativity situations in his or her life. Choice implies consciousness, a high degree of consciousness. Without it, you have no choice. Choice begins with the moments of identifying from the minds of the conditionist pattern. The moments you become present until you reach the point. That point, you are unconscious spiritually speaking. This means that you are compelled to think, feel, and act in certain ways according to the conditioning of your mind. This is why Jesus said, "Forgive them, for they know not what they do." This is not related to intelligence of the conventional sense of the world. Have met I have met many highly intelligent and educated people who were also completely unconscious, which is to say, completely unidentified with their mind. In fact, if mental development and increases knowledge are not counterbalanced by the corresponding growth in consciousness, the potentials of unhappiness and disasters is very great. Your friend is stuck in a relationship with an abusive partner and not for the first time. Why? No choice, no mind. Conditioned as it is by the past, always seeks to recreate what it knows and familiar with it. Even if it is painful, at least it is familiar. The mind always adheres to the known. To the known, the unknown is dangerous because it is no control over it. That's why the mind dislikes and ignores the present moments. Present moments awareness creates a gap not only in the streams of minds but also in the past futures continuum. Nothing truly new and creates can come into the world except through that gap, that clear space of infinite possibility. Your friend, being identified with her mind may be recreating a pattern learned in the past, in which intimacy and abuse and inspirably linked it. Alternatively, she may be acting out the mind patterns learned in early childhood, according to which she is unworthy and deserves to be punished. It is possible, too, that she lives a large part of her life through the pain body which always seeks more pain and which to feed. Her partner has his own unconscious patterns which complement hers. Of course, her situations is hers created, but who what it is, or what it is the self that is doing to creating the mental emotions patterns from the past, no more. Why make self out of it? If you tell her that she has chosen her conditions or situation, you are reinforcing her states of the mind identifications, but her mind patterns are who she is. It is herself. It is her true identity derived from the past. Show her friend how to be an observing presence behind her thoughts and her emotions. Tell her about the pain body and how to free herself from it. Teach her teach her the art of inner body awarenesses. Demonstrate to her the meaning of presence. As soon as she is able to access the power of now and thereby break through her conditions past, she will have a choice. Nobody chooses dysfunction as conflicts pain. Nobody chooses insanity. They happen to become there is not enough presence in you to dissolve the past, not enough light to dispel the darkness. You are not full here. You have not quite woken up yet. And the main time the conditions mind is running your life. Similarly, if you are one of the many people who have the issues with their parents, if you still harbor a resentment about something they did or did not do, then you still believe that they had a choice, that they could have acted differently. It always looks as if people had a choice, but that is the illusion. As long as your mind with the conditions, patterns runs your life, as long as you are your mind, what choice do you have? None. You are not even there. The mind identifies states as severely dysfunctional. It is a form of insanities. Almost everyone is suffering from the illness in varied degrees. The moments you realize this, there can be no more resentment. How can you resent someone's illnesses? The only appropriate response is compassion.
So that means no one, nobody's responsible for what they do, and I don't like that idea. If you are run by your mind, although you have no choice, you will still suffer in consequences of your unconsciousness. And you will then create further suffering. You will bear the burden of fear, conflict, problems, and pain. The suffering thus created will eventually force you out of your conscious state. What do you say about this choice that also applies to forgiveness? I suppose you need to fully conscious and surrender before you can forgive. Forgiveness is a term that has been in use for 2,000 years, but most people have a very limited view of what it means. You cannot fully forgive yourself or others as long as you derive from your sense of self from the past, only through assessing the power of the now, which is own power. There can be true forgiveness. The renders of past powerless could realize deeply and that nothing you could ever do that was ever done to you could touch even in the slightest radius essence of who you are. The whole concept of forgiveness that becomes unnecessary. And how do I get that point of realization, huh? When you surrender to what is, and so become fully present, the past ceases to have any power. You do not need any more. Presence is the key. The now is the key. How would I know when I have surrendered to the connection? Well, when you no longer need to ask that question. And everyone, that is the end of this book. Finally finished all 10 chapters. A lot to learn. A lot I learned from this book about surrendering to connection.
Surrender to the
egoic mind. And
there's a lot of things in there that needs to be learned. And I need to learn from my inner self too.
And when you know that you surrender the connection is when you no longer ask for it anymore. So, as I say to everyone, I'm gonna continue on the next book, whenever that is. possibly CNA or something else next, or possibly more books about soul connections or karmic cycles, or about inner healings, or the Book of Awakening. But as I continue next Wednesday, sayonara.
Bye.